Okay, so about 2 months ago, I announced that I was quitting music full-time, stepping away from doing music as a job. And then over that video and the next couple, I tried to cover exactly why. So that was like where the burnout came from, what parts of the industry I hated, but also what made it great, and tried to give some examples of homies who I think are doing the music thing correctly. A month having passed since the last one, I wanted to talk about exactly what moving forward feels like and what I'm hoping it'll look like a year from now, maybe even 5 years from now. So yeah, I moved back from Ridgewood, Queens to Monterey, California, as you can see it in the background. And I can't lie, it was a pretty vicious adjustment. Moving was brutal, of course, it always is. Packing up the house where I had arrived in New York with 3 of my closest friends from the music scene. They had all already left the house already in the past year or two. So it was a weird experience of sort of grieving that era without the people who I spent that with. But we did it. And a few close friends came through from that era anyway and helped move out. And now even though they weren't people who lived in the house, it did make the process that much easier. And my last week in New York was actually pretty beautiful. I saw a lot of old friends. I was staying with people I hold very dearly, and I was reminded why I came and why I loved New York so much. And yet, I also feel that for now, it was enough. I felt the weight of goodbyes and the stress, anxiety still held by a lot of the spaces that I would leave. I also knew that it wasn't the end, so there was a levity to the departure that I'm not sure I've had before. Because as many of you may know, I've moved a couple times in the past. But this one, I have a lot of my life in storage. I am expecting to go back. So there's sort of this till next time energy. But then there was the flight. And then we began. After so much talk of what to do next, so much planning and ruminating, at some point, one must follow the directions that you printed out from MapQuest. I don't know how many of y'all did that back in the day, but it was a whole experience. And, it's kind of old reference. Anyway, okay. I landed back in Monterey and I immediately felt like so unsettled. There's a specific feeling of being back in your childhood home after so long, especially after that home is being like rented by other people. And then the feeling of living with your parents after being mostly independent. I mean, in my case, for like 10 years, extremely strange. The adjustment of trying to feel comfortable living with my mom and in an area that is just so much more homogenous, yet devoid of community, was such like whiplash coming back here. And then as well as just interfacing with parents where you both are trying your hardest not to fall back into patterns you have from when you were like a teenager. It was hard not to feel like I was slowly erasing myself, to be honest. But things changed. I got into my little routines, fixed up an old bike in the garage because I don't have a car out here. And the second week was actually quite fire. First week, I straight up was like, yo, I need to find a way to move out like immediately. But now I genuinely, I'm like actually quite stoked and grateful to be living with my mom again. The other night we were like watching Seinfeld. I'm taking the hood off. The other night we were watching Seinfeld together, which is something that we used to do a lot when I was like 13. And my mom like loves Seinfeld. And so she was just like cackling, and I don't know. It was like, it wasn't nostalgic, but it like, I don't want to say nostalgic because I feel like nostalgic has this sort of sadness to it, but it was just so beautiful to like, I guess, be back there kind of like sharing that moment with my mom again. Because damn, I feel like when you first move out, it's like, damn, am I ever going to get any of those like parent experience, like mom experiences again? So it was quite lovely. It's been quite lovely. But under all of that, what am I to do now? In this video, let me try again. I wanted to outline exactly what I was going to do instead of music. I think in the last videos, there's a lot of, you can yap only so much about like, oh, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I want to do something else. Somebody made a great comment on one of the last videos that I think I've actually mentioned before, where he said, you're fucked, bro. 9 to 5 sucks too. And you know, that definitely made me think a lot about what I want to do next. And so I kind of just wanted to, you know, we've talked a whole lot about why like the music industry can be rough and why I want to change out of that, but not a whole lot as to like, okay, then like, what do you do next? I guess I wanted to share where I'm at with that, how logistically difficult that's been. And I guess maybe it'll help me and you sort of understand what this process looks like, this sort of like career transition thing. So I'm gonna break it down a little bit. I've got into 3 categories I got of like kind of what I'm working on right now, because it's been honestly so hard to try and parse every day as to like, yo, like, what do I do today? Like, where do I need to work towards? Just because it's so nebulous. But this is basically the 3 categories of what's going on. We've got money, career, and music. Each of these have different prongs and projects I'm working on within them. The first thing we got to do, get a steady paycheck. At first, I wanted to get a job subbing. More on that in careers, and I'm still gonna do that, but I've realized what I want is something a bit more consistent. I spent everything I had on trying to make the music thing happen, and so it's time to get a savings buffer up and going again. And I think the best way to do that is through consistency. Brandon Sanderson talks about hotel front desk jobs sort of being a cheat code for people like me. And I'll link the video where he talks about that in the description, because I love how Brandon Sanderson talks about creativity and working as a creative. He specifically talks about writers, but I think it applies in tons of creative roles. And then next, and this is the big one, what do I want to do in my life? So I had 3 major things in the air for a long time, and they're still in the air. So it was either go corporate, become a teacher, or, and this is more recent, go into policy analysis. Specifically public policy. So corporate, this one was just, how do I max out money? How do I, you know, which is basically the opposite of doing music, right? It's going into an office, having a consistent large paycheck, but probably sacrificing maybe some ethics, maybe sacrificing some fulfillment in the project that you're working on. I have a computer science degree. I'm about to complete a data science certificate, so I kind of have the qualifications to do so, but something I noticed was that a lot of my friends in that field at my age are also trying to swap careers. And so that kind of felt just like going from one issue to a different one. The other one, which is kind of on the other end of the spectrum, was teaching. If I wanted to max out fulfillment from my job, I would probably do this. On it, like truly, I feel like I am super built to be a teacher. I think I would love it. It's like an extremely social job. I've worked with kids like most of my life and I love it. But the main issues are a low salary and also not a whole lot of flexibility in terms of your day-to-day. They've got these big breaks, but you know, you've got those huge like summer breaks and there's a winter break, which is consistent. But location, flexibility, hours, and vacation times are still super important to me at this point in my life. I'm not certain I don't want to be a teacher right now, but at the same time, I feel like I want to give this last thing that we're about to talk about a little bit of time before I go super into, I don't know, I guess like teaching is sort of the safety. It's like, I know I'm going to like it, but like, I kind of want to go for maybe reach for something a little bit further and see if I like it. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like it satisfies a lot of like hopes I have for my life. The last thing we're going to talk about here on those prongs is policy analysis. My whole life, I've been pretty interested in policy and the way the societies we build are sort of made up, like the structure of societies. This went on a weird hiatus since like 2019 when the music started blowing up and my life sort of became more me focused and more like my career and like music focused. But recently, while I was starting to ease off the music career path, that part of my life that I'm interested in was sort of like coming back up. And more people in the media were talking about things that have been interesting for me for like my whole life, specifically inequality and how taxation and different types of taxation can affect inequality. I couldn't figure out if I wanted to do, like in this space, I couldn't figure out if I wanted to do like sociology or economics or like computational social science until a friend of mine pointed out that public policy is sort of right in the middle of that like 3-circle Venn diagram. So that is what I'm gunning for. I want to look at policies here and around the world and try to analyze how well they do what they were designed to do and then try and figure out ways to implement them here. I feel like the US has so much potential to be such a wonderful place to live for most people. There's so much economic success here, and it just seems like the working class has been completely stripped of a lot of that economic prowess and success that they help create. So I'm super interested in ways that you can kind of make sure that, if you see all of us as stakeholders in this company, stockholders in this company that is the US, make sure that everybody's getting their dividends, I guess. It's gonna be a grind. I'm gonna start just with begging for internships around the area and see where that takes me. Ton of work that needs to be done, but I wanna be a part of it. So, and I know you can't see anything right now. This is a weird type of video, and I know there's these weird constellations where sand got in the camera from when I was filming Spite, but that brings us back to music. So if you've been on the Instagram, you've seen there's been some new songs floating around. I really want to put those out, but I have an entire other project. It is made up of 7 songs, 2 interludes, which I made over the past 5 years, but I didn't put out for one reason or another. I was talking to my one and only creative advisor, Cody, and he made the great point that either you show the step or you skip the step. And I want to show y'all the step. So in the coming weeks, we're going to be slowly, just putting stuff out. It's going to be 2 singles and I'll drop the project. I'm not sure exactly when yet, but it's coming. And then in the new year, we'll continue to put out the new song. And lastly, due to many requests, we're going to be doing a restock of the brown All in Good Time hoodies. It'll be a pre-order. So they need to be made after you order them, but they should be shipped by Christmas. And that's it. That's the update. Public policy and music without self-judgment, hopefully. Here's to drive luck and broken legs, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how I feel about the vibe of this video. I might re-record this, but let me know how that all sounds to you. And if any of that rings true, let me know about your own personal experiences. I've been loving seeing how these videos sort of reflect on your own lives in the comments. It's normalizing to me, and I think to other people. But yeah, that's it. I'm Bryce, and thank you for everything.